Rain splashed against the tall glass windows of the corporate tower as dawn painted the sky in pale gray. Inside, the building hummed with the low murmur of early employees and the rhythmic whir of cleaning machines. Somewhere on the 20th floor, a man in a faded navy jumpsuit pushed a mop, his movements quiet but deliberate. His name was Liam Carter, a 36-year-old single dad who worked nights as a janitor and days as a father. He was known among the staff as the quiet cleaner. No one paid much attention to him, except for the fact that every floor he touched gleamed brighter than the last. But behind those calm eyes was a man who had seen too much, a veteran who once led a search and rescue unit before life knocked him down. When his wife died in a car accident 5 years ago, he left everything behind and took the first job that allowed him to be close to his 8-year-old daughter, Mia. That morning, the company, Ardent Dynamics, was buzzing with tension. It was the day of the Innovation Challenge, a competition that the CEO, Elena Kingsley, had personally organized to find new strategies for improving the company's logistics system. Over 100 specialists, consultants, and engineers had been flown in to participate. Millions of dollars were on the line, and so was Elena's reputation as one of the sharpest CEOs in the country. Liam had no part in that world. He was just there to clean up the mess after they were done. As he mopped near the glass conference room, he overheard fragments of conversation, words like optimization models, data inefficiency, system lag. None of it made sense to him, but when he noticed the schematic of the company's network displayed on the large screen, his brain instinctively started analyzing it. Old habits from his military days kicked in. It wasn't logistics he saw, it was a pattern of routes and flows, like the kind he used to plan during crisis evacuations. And he could see immediately where the problem lay. Too much dependency on centralized nodes, he muttered quietly to himself. What was that? A voice startled him. He looked up. A young assistant had overheard him. Liam shook his head. Nothing. Just talking to myself. The assistant frowned but walked away. Still, curiosity burned inside Liam. During his lunch break, he sat quietly in a maintenance room, sketching out a rough diagram on a piece of old paper, an alternate routing system based on his field experience. He didn't think much of it, just something to keep his mind occupied. Meanwhile, upstairs, things weren't going well. Every expert team presented polished slides, but Elena wasn't impressed. The logistics bottleneck was crippling the company's profits, and not one of these so-called geniuses had come close to fixing it. She ran her fingers through her chestnut hair, frustration growing behind her calm, professional face. As evening fell, the building emptied. Only the janitorial crew remained. Elena stayed back too, staring at the whiteboard full of half-baked ideas. Her reflection in the glass looked tired, not like the confident CEO people saw on magazine covers. When Liam entered the room to clean, he paused. He could feel the weight in the air, exhaustion, disappointment. He wanted to leave quietly, but she looked up. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said with a faint smile. "You can clean later if you want. I'm just wrapping up a long day." "It's okay, ma'am," he replied softly. "You look like you've been fighting a hard battle." That made her chuckle faintly. "You have no idea." He hesitated, then glanced at the diagrams on the board. "That's the routing system you're trying to fix." Her brows lifted. "You know about logistics." He smiled slightly. "Not really. But I used to work in operations. Different kind." Something in his tone made her curious. "What kind of operations?" "Search and rescue," he said. "We used to plan routes under pressure. Limited resources, bad weather, no time to think, and lives at stake." Elena leaned forward, intrigued. "And what would you do differently here?" Liam hesitated, then unfolded the piece of paper he'd kept in his pocket. "I was doodling earlier. It's probably wrong. But maybe, this could reduce the traffic through your main nodes." She took the paper and studied it. Her sharp mind immediately saw the elegance in his crude drawing, a decentralized, adaptive network structure that mirrored a military evacuation pattern. It was simple, efficient, and it made perfect sense. "Wait," she murmured. "This could actually work." He shrugged, embarrassed. "It's just an idea." "No, it's more than that," she said, eyes lighting up. "Would you be willing to explain this tomorrow?" "To the board?" He blinked. "Ma'am, I'm just a janitor." "Not tomorrow," she replied firmly. "You're something else." The next day, the boardroom buzzed again. 100 experts sat in suits and ties, unaware that the man about to speak had spent the last night scrubbing their floors. Elena stood before them and said, "Before we conclude, I'd like you all to hear one more proposal, from someone outside your circle." When Liam entered the room in his work uniform, murmurs filled the air. Some laughed, others looked confused, but Elena's expression was calm, confident. "Mr. Carter, please continue." With trembling hands, Liam placed his rough sketches on the projector. His voice was soft at first, but as he explained, it grew steadier. He described the system as if it were a rescue mission, rerouting to avoid choke points, maintaining flow under stress, and balancing limited capacity. His logic was clear, his understanding intuitive. The experts began to exchange glances. Some frowned, realizing they hadn't thought this way. By the time he finished, the room was silent. One of the senior consultants finally said, "This is revolutionary." Another added, "It's unconventional, but it eliminates 80% of our current bottlenecks." Elena smiled quietly. Sometimes expertise blinds us to simplicity. The board approved a trial run of Liam's design. Within a month, the company's logistics costs dropped dramatically. What had once been a broken system now ran like clockwork. The shareholders were thrilled, and the press hailed Elena as a visionary leader. But she knew the truth. The brilliance came from the janitor who refused to stop thinking. Weeks passed, and Liam continued his cleaning shifts, though now everyone in the building treated him differently. People greeted him, some even asked for advice. But he remained humble, focusing on his daughter and his quiet life. One evening, Elena invited him to dinner, a small restaurant by the river. He hesitated at first but agreed. She arrived in a simple black dress, her hair tied back, no trace of the corporate armor she wore in the office. "I owe you more than you know," she said. "You saved this company." He shook his head. "You saw something worth saving. That's on you." They shared stories, about loss, about purpose, about second chances. When he spoke of his daughter, his face softened in a way that made Elena's heart ache. She realized that what drew her to him wasn't just his intelligence, it was his strength in silence, the way he carried pain without bitterness. "I've spent years surrounded by people chasing power," she said. "But you remind me what real strength looks like." He smiled faintly. "Strength's just surviving long enough to keep going." Their eyes met across the table, a quiet, lingering connection neither had expected. Months later, Liam was offered a full-time position in the innovation department. He refused at first, afraid of leaving his janitorial work that gave him flexibility for Mia. But Elena made sure the position came with flexible hours and support for single parents. On his first day in the new role, Mia came with him. She ran through the halls, her laughter echoing. Elena knelt beside her, smiling. "You must be the brilliant one your dad talks about." Mia grinned. "He says you're his boss." Elena laughed. "Sometimes he's mine." From then on, Liam became more than an employee, he became part of something larger. He developed new systems, trained others, and built a reputation that spread beyond the company. Yet he never forgot the mop and bucket, symbols of where he started and how far he'd come. And through it all, Elena stayed close. They weren't just CEO and employee anymore. They were two people who had found light in the unlikeliest place. One rainy evening, nearly a year after that first encounter, Liam stood by the same glass window where it all began.